Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Francisco, Hart, Hotchkiss, Murillo,
Here.
Rouse, White, Mayor Snyder.
Here. Thank you. Changes to the agenda, Mr. Casey?
Yes, Madam Mayor. There are actually two this week that we'd like to make. Item 8, the appropriation of community development block grant funds for the Youth Apprenticeship and Santa Barbara Arts Alliance programs. We'd like to continue that to a later date. The funds were approved through the Human Services CDBG Committee, but the technical monies being used to support those two grants were Human Services money, not community development block grant money. So we'd like to come back when that's properly noticed. And then item 11, the setting the date for a public hearing regarding the single-family design board's project design approval for 1912 Mission Ridge Road. We would like to continue that appeal hearing to March 10th. There was a noticing problem, and so in respect for due process on the noticing, we'd like to continue that item to March 10th as opposed to next week when it was originally scheduled for.
Okay. So can we get a motion to continue both 8 and 11?
Second.
Okay, we got that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Oh, sorry. Mr.
Mayor, excuse me.
Yeah.
I believe that Mr. Casey was asking the council to set the date for March 10th
And yeah, that was,
rather than continuing the item 11.
if we could amend that motion to continue item 8 and then move the date on number 11 to March 10th. Is that okay? So just to clarify the motion, we got that? Do we need to vote again? Okay. So if the motioner and seconder are okay with that? Yes? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Great. All right, just to be crystal clear on that. Okay, we have a number of public comment speaker slips, and so we'll start with Michael Baker, to be followed by Melody Joy Baker. No relation, I don't think, but
I don't think
two
so.
Bakers. Go right ahead. Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Baker, Executive Director, CEO, I guess is the title, for United Boys and Girls Clubs Santa Barbara County. I want to first thank Mayor Schneider for coming to the welcoming party for me at Union Bank. That was a very nice ceremony. Well, thank you for being there. It meant a lot to me having you there. And I just want to let you know that things are progressing very nicely at the West Side unit. And we have been open now for 3 consecutive Saturdays, and we're averaging in the mid-40s right now. Hopefully this next Saturday will be a banner day for us. We're hopefully get up to 60 kids at least coming on a Saturday, which is, again, that club has not been open for over 18 years on Saturdays. In addition, we're reaching out to the areas around the club to pick kids up and bring them to and from the Boys and Girls Club. We're figuring out best way to reach those kids that need our services the most. So I welcome each and every one of you to give me ideas on what we can do to reach the kids that need the services at the Boys and Girls Club the most, because you know better than I do, being new here, the areas that need the Boys and Girls Club. So I want to again continue to thank you for your support and leadership, and appreciate everything you do for not only the Boys and Girls Clubs, but all the nonprofits here in Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you. Melody Joy Baker, come on up. Be followed by David Daniel Diaz. There's the microphone right there at the table for you, Melody. And just make sure that green light's on if you can press the button. You press that button right there, make sure that green light's on. There you go. Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members, Mayor. Mr. Colon, I owe you an apology. I was informed that, in fact, the officer took it on himself to make that statement. So when I'm wrong, I publicly admit it and apologize. Ms. Murillo, I do thank you for showing up on that Thursday and spending the hour talking with me about everything with Reno, and for the advice and the help. And my next statement is not including Ms. Murillo. We have 2 options now. The police are flat out saying they're not going to recognize Reno as a service dog. So if he's attacked, it's not a priority. the law says the police have to recognize him. So one of two solutions: federal court. I'm not going to ask for money. I'm going to demand that the police be forced. Or the council themselves can actually draft a resolution and formally recognize him. Then the police have to do it. And Mr. Cologne can probably research and find out that I'm correct. And I'd ask that you do research it, and if I'm correct, make that recommendation. But as you can see, Reno's back, but he ended up spending 3 days in the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. David Daniel Diaz will be followed by Clint Orr. Come on up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, step on it, and I'll go around.
There you go. Thank you for, there we go.
Yes.
Great. Thanks for handling that. Mr. Diaz?
Good afternoon, Council. Santa Barbara. I was asked to come back and expound a little more on that issue regarding the former employees in Ventura. Ariel Colon and Andrew Stuffler, they were hired by Santa Barbara, and the history shows that in Ventura they went up to the door with their badge and said that they wanted to check the safety and health of the establishment where people were living, and they were given fees and fines if changes were made, even light fixtures in their home. And I thought it was just going to be a quick little nothing, but a lot of people bugged me. They were interested in knowing what's going on in our community. I mean, people can show up now and violate our constitutional rights and enter our home and give us fees and fines because of little fixture things we did on our own where we didn't need to call a contractor or get a license from the city. So it was printed out, and I brought it, and here it is. And the other subject is the EF international students. We get thousands of them every year, and they're still annoying the bus drivers with their cell phones with maps showing where do I go here and there. It's a very big pain in the bottom for a lot of residents and employees, and this town's very frustrated, and people are surprised that the homes aren't being charged a surtax because they're only here for 3 months at the most, and they're running around. A lot of crime that has happened to these kids is in Isla Vista. None of them are 21, and they get in trouble out there because they're from another country, they're naive, and they don't know what they're doing. So maybe one day we can discuss this issue and get it under control so our residents and our guests can be a little more comfortable knowing that it's still a safe community. Thank you very much.
Clint Orr will be followed by John Webby.
Mayor Schneider, council members, Clint Orr, and I represent the California Country Dance Foundation, a nonprofit corporation dedicated to teaching the lost art of couples dance here in the state of California. Since the Airport Authority tossed our offer to lease 521 Firestone a few months back, I've noticed that the biggest losses in your budget are airport related. Isn't that interesting? So you're going to put a restaurant in there, and that's going to be the draw, I suppose, for people in other states and counties to come in and fly in and increase your revenues. Renting that structure to a Hooters or Applebee's does not do anything as far as the landings or hotel visits. Parking revenues and that big parking lot across the street, nothing. A regional draw of a dance hall would be something that would bring in people from all over the world, to be honest with you. Not to mention it provides habitat for your youth and the college students, which really doesn't exist in this county. Okay, so you can look around, but it's not there. I spoke with 300 people. They all they love the idea. The only people that doesn't like the idea of a community dance hall by a nonprofit at the airport are the 7 of you in the Airport Authority. The only ones I've ever spoken to, ever. Now, the airport, that's enough said. Okay, so anyway, I'm looking at the Camarillo Airport. maybe the West Coast destination of couples dance will have to be in Camarillo. It'll break my heart, but, so be it. You guys don't want to have something there, then that's your decision. But I think you're making a big mistake, and I'll see you at election time. Thanks.
Okay, there's a number of people who are waving their time for Mr. Webby. I want to make sure you're here. I see Michael Miranda in the back. Is Frank Hernandez here? You're right there. David Keith, you're over here. Marge Giamo, there you are. And Clay Holdren. Okay, so Mr. Webby, 1, 2, 3. You can have up to 12 minutes if you need that. Go right ahead. I believe I did see your name, but we just have quite a few public comment speakers today. So go ahead, Mr. Webby, and be followed by Tom Ridrow.
Good afternoon, everybody. I see you all know me since the last time I've been in here. I'm not feeling too good today, so I'm not going to be speaking loudly like I usually do. But the reason why I came today is because I want to apologize to the mayor for how hostile I was the last time I was here, because I probably shouldn't have been hostile to you. I probably should have been hostile to the town administrator, because I'm finding out more and more that he's the one that runs this city. But my real aggravation here is I went to a meeting on Tuesday at the councilors' chambers to meet Miss Murillo to discuss some of my problems. Well, in the meantime, on my way in, I had a gentleman threaten me, one of your council members, telling me that I should never do what I did and not to ever do it again. Okay, well, there's only one thing. This chambers here is for the people. It's not for the councilors. It's for the councilors to sit and listen to what we have problems about. So at this point, with all the knowledge that I'm learning about this one council, Mr. Hotkiss, and the problems that he's in on other areas, and threatening me on not saying what I need to say in my community, I think I'm asking and I'm demanding that he steps down from his chambers, because he's not taking us serious. And the thing is if he can sit there instead of asking to talk to me in public or at a meeting, instead of talking out of the side of his mouth and threatening me and not to say something, he's not going to get me to not say something, because it's freedom of speech in this country. So what I'm asking is, and actually what I want to say as well is, this past week things have settled down on State Street. So whatever you're doing is working. But I am keeping an eye on it. But Mr. Hoskins, don't threaten me ever again, okay? Because there is people that have called me in regards to the little mission that we went on last time. And I was actually amazed on how many people have called or stopped into my store or emailed me in support and telling me that there's problems with our city council members. Okay, well, Kathy Murillo said something to me in my meeting the other day that I was threatening on getting people off the board. I'm not threatening. I'm not threatening anybody, because I know what politics is all about. I've been involved in politics for a long time. And it's easy to get somebody off of a board. And there is some people on this board that we as citizens, the group that we are forming, we will get you off this board. Okay, so the ones that are doing their job, continue to do your job. Okay? The ones that are not doing the job, just step down, because you're not doing a very good job for us people in the community. And I'm going to say it one more time. Don't ever threaten me again, Mr. Hoskins, okay, because I don't deserve it. I'm speaking for the people. So if you're going to work for us. Don't work for yourself, okay, because your ego and your self-centeredness isn't working in our town. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Okay, Tom Woodrow will be followed by Phil Walker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. A couple of items to touch on here. As Santa Barbara City Watch, we like to stand up for local business. The protest that happened over at the restaurant there on Milpas, we wanted to say something. Some of you council members spoke out. I appreciated that. I think Council Member Francisco said that the behavior was disgusting. Councilwoman Murillo, you did come out and say it was not productive. I urge you to say something stronger. I also heard from some of the rest of you as well in Taylor Knopf's article in the news press Bottom line is, a business improvement district, we're not necessarily in favor or opposed. That shouldn't be a cause for someone's restaurant to be invaded by protesters telling them, and according to Taylor's article here, that they were intimidating customers and telling customers that the food was bad and would make them sick. Mr. Guzman over at El Bayo, I'm sure he's a hardworking small businessman, and this is not how we handle our business in the city of Santa Barbara. POTR, the group that chose to do this, should be ashamed. That's not their way to make their mark in the community. And we stand opposed. Santa Barbara City Watch is a counterweight to that kind of behavior, and we want you to know that. Secondly, about the golf course, I read Councilmember Francisco's article to the news press, and I thought it made a lot of sense. And I encourage the council, City Watch encourages the council to look at the opportunity to make the golf course solvent by bringing in a private contractor rather than losing the resources each and every day it bleeds into the red. It's not that we should be unsympathetic to those who are employed by the golf course and by the city. It's that the question is do we want to subsidize a golf course that isn't making it? Okay? Our obligations to public sector unions should not prevail over our concern for taxpayer dollars and all of the way that you judiciously as a council spend dollars on things that matter to us, things like roads and other improvements. So, thank you.
Thank you. Phil Walker will be followed by Kenneth Locke.
You know, I actually like Councilman Hotchkiss. And he asked me one time, how do you stand working where you do? Well, you get used to it. I've certainly gotten used to Councilman Hotchkiss. And what I really point he came up with, what I really respect is the goose and gander concept. It should be applied to trees, what used to be trees, the Edison utility poles. You know, it's incredible in this town. Community development, code enforcement. You know, it's a broad brush concept. If you're going to do it to me, let you be the first to cast the first stone. And, you know, that concept works. That's about all I have to say on that one. The one thing, too, is the short-term vacation rental dilemma. Again, there's got to be a goose and gander concept applied there, too. It's you see Mr. I can't remember, it's Clayton's. He had a long, lengthy editorial on Sunday's op-ed news press, and he's got some valid concerns. But, you know, if you're going to broad brush me with it, broad brush everybody in town with the same thing, you know. Thank you very much.
Kenneth Locke, and then Trevor Martin, William Connell, and Jeffrey David will be the final speaker.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I'm probably going to be before the school board this evening. I'm still pushing my interdisciplinary perspective. One thing I came up with this morning that I've done some tweets on Twitter about is the idea of discipline. And through the means of tennis, we can actually understand a discipline in relation to becoming disciplined. And who I represent in relation to tennis is actually the first tennis player who actually kind of had the intelligence. It requires a little intelligence and then a little bit of discipline and a little bit of imagination to get to the point of where I realized tennis as a holistic health practice, where you develop a relationship with your whole body, and then the whole basis of the mind-body integration, complete knowledge, complete exercise, and then the spiritual, and then and so forth. Now, if you're not, it turns out that now people can actually have a relationship with tennis where it is actually now a discipline, where you actually, the teacher is the discipliner, say, and sets the mark for the student to reach. And it turns out that the teachers who came before me weren't disciplining the children or the students, and just the opposite of discipline is where they become spoiled. And right now there's a tournament going on at the municipal courts, and I'm sorry to say that all of those players are actually victims. Victims, I don't know if that's the right word, but they all have a one-arm relationship which is competitive-based, and I don't know where it began. But again, historically, we haven't had a teacher who can actually, again, understand how you exercise your discipline to reach your highest potential through actually the discipline, tennis here. So I just thought I'd pass that along. Again, I'll probably go before the school board and share that with them. Thank you.
Trevor Martinson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council members. I know that you were delivered my correspondence Friday. Whether all of you got it or not, I don't know. But it's regarding the El Encanto's main building height violation. And unbelievably, this all started in 2009 when an uphill neighbor noticed that their view of the Arlington Tower was being covered by the new steel frame for the new main building. Both the El Encanto and planning staff have tried to obfuscate. Hey, we don't know about this. Well, we do. And one of your staff members, your former chief building official, George Estrella, finally felt that, yes, a survey would have to be done. And, of course, when that survey came back, it showed that one portion of the building was in conformance at 29.5 inches, but failed to notice and mention that the rest of the main building's third floor, or we'll call it the upper floor, was significantly over the 30-foot height limit. So, to verify this height, I went and had an independent surveyor check, and he verified that the main building is 9.8 feet over the 30-foot height limit allowed in this zone. So, please note, you as the City Council, by ordinance, set limits of heights less than the height of 30 feet, but you cannot allow any further violation of the 30-foot height limit. And my former letter to Paul Casey, 11 February 2014, delineated all of the facts that confirm that this building is over the height limit. So I would say, let's enforce the rules, please. The city charter rules. Thank you.
William Connell? Come on up, Bill. You're next.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm not scared of you either. I'm here to talk about a veterans tax exemption statute that I've worked 24 years on. 24. This is the news release giving back the tax money to the veteran vendor. Has to do with disabled American veterans who vend. You last spring set a fee schedule for the 4th of July celebration, not knowing this veterans tax exemption statute. I'm certain you've never seen it. Anyway, I paid the fee, told them as a disabled American veteran, I don't have to pay $600 to sell a hot dog on the 4th of July. I did so anyway. The interpretive nature of the exemption that was given to me by the state Senate. The specific and unique tax language there where it says any license, comma, tax, comma, or fee followed by the word whatsoever is a state statute that you're not supposed to take a monetary extraction from the disabled American veteran who's vending within your city. I think it can be solved easily because you're going to come again with a fee schedule for our events coming up. You could put into those fee schedule on what you're going to cost or whatever, veterans, tax, and fee exemption. If you did so, you could thereby also retroactively hand me back my $600 so I don't have to sue you to get the money returned.
Okay, thank
So
you very much.
I brought the issue, laid out the issue, gave you the solution to the issue. I know you're not supposed to talk, but does anybody have any questions on?
No, but if you have something for us, you can hand that to the clerk, if that's for, or is that, unless that's, those are your notes?
These are for the clerk.
Okay, thank you very
That's
much.
the correspondence
Great.
between us.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
a
Connell.
lot for your time. I hope I was informative.
Thank you. And then Jeffrey David?
So much to say in so little time. Madam Mayor, members of council, Frank. I want to talk about PTSD. Many of these homeless folks you see out there are veterans who've served their country and have PTSD from Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other venues. There is a new book out by a local, and it's going to be presented on campus tomorrow night. I myself have been diagnosed officially with PTSD related to my service as an emergency medical technician in 1985, Operation Big Pine, under general supervision of John Negroponte. And I did treat uniformed soldiers of a foreign army and have in my possession a letter, I don't know if you could call it a letter of thanks or a letter of passage, because this was basically a CIA operation which Ronald Reagan conducted in the mid-'80s. And I had a lot of friends that were actually Latino, and there were split loyalties. I went down without taking a side. I had an emergency medical technician certificate, which I still have in my files, and flew helicopter Flight for Life missions. And I got PTSD out of it, and it's taken me decades to get over physical symptoms. PTSD is an injury. It's not an illness, it's an injury. And the military tried to get DSM-5 to recognize PTSD as an injury. It's still listed as a syndrome or an illness or sickness and has, therefore, the stigma of mental illness. And that's a shame. But there's no shame in PTSD, and I'm not ashamed of the fact that I went down there not with a rifle, not with an M16. I saw a lot of M16s. I went down there with a stethoscope and bandages. And I've had some troubles, and that's why I have a service animal. I'd be happy to validate all this or talk to any of you privately. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. Move on to consent calendar. We already made a motion on items 8 and 11. There's some others to read. Go ahead.
Item number 2, adoption of ordinance for access license and lease agreement with High Sierra Grill, Santa Barbara Incorporated, recommending that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving and authorizing the airport director to execute a 10-year access license and lease agreement with 3 5-year options with High Sierra Grill Santa Barbara Incorporated, a California corporation, for 79,752 square feet of land, including 8,695 square feet of building, 252 at 521 Norman Firestone Road at the Santa Barbara Airport, effective upon the earlier of the completion of the city improvements or 9 months after the license commencement date, for a monthly rental of $12,694.
Thank you. Without further objection, we'll waive further reading. Mr. White?
I have a couple of questions about item 5.
Okay. If we could read item 5.
Contract for design of Chinook and Soledad pedestrian bicycle bridges and corridor improvement project.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Thank you, and my apologies to staff about this being such a late hit, but I just got a call this morning on this item, and I wanted to follow up on it a little bit. The Cacique Street Bridge, Mr. Owaziak, that was. Am I correct that was once a vehicular bridge, and then that was washed out in the floods?
That's the understanding, correct.
And the the decision not to replace it with another vehicular bridge. Can you describe how that decision was made? It would seem to, I mean, obviously we have these other bridges that are getting replaced because they exist, and we're getting subsidized for those. But apparently the fact that this bridge was destroyed long in modern times, but still a while ago, yet it's not being considered for. I presume that this pedestrian bridge kind of preempts a vehicular bridge going in there. Can you describe a little bit what the thinking is about that set of decisions?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember White, I'm John Owasiak, Principal Civil Engineer for the Public Works Department. I'm sorry that I don't have all the history on the Cacique Bridge in front of me, but my understanding is that it was once a vehicular bridge, and then it was removed and then replaced with a pedestrian type bridge. Now, this issue of the decision of what should be done with it at this point in time, I'd like to take you back to not long ago, but back in 2013. There was an East Side Neighborhood Transportation Planning Study that was done, and the neighborhood identified the replacement of the Cacique pedestrian bridge as a priority project. And it was subsequently included in the East Side Neighborhood Transportation Management Plan, which was subsequently adopted by Council in July of 2013. So with that strong support of the neighborhood, staff did go ahead and apply for the Active Transportation Program grant funding for the replacement. And it was one of 5 projects. I made a presentation not long ago to the council. It was one of 5 projects that was projects for grant funding that was applied for the Active Transportation Program grant. And much to our surprise, 4 of the 5 projects did receive grant funding. So this is one of the 4 that received the grant funding. So this has been on our capital program list for the last 13 years as a bike and pedestrian bridge project. So staff is trying to move forward with the delivery of a project that we understand the neighborhood would like to see come to fruition.
Well, and believe me, I'm not trying to wrong foot you on this. As I say, I got a call this morning asking about the vehicular utility there. So in addition to that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the comment that yet again, this effort is adding a substantial chunk of sidewalk to our network in an area that, again, our sidewalks are one of our most neglected resources in this city, and this is an example where staff has gotten creative and found some funding to take care of one of our woefully missing gaps of our sidewalk system. So anyway, I'm certainly will be supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to follow up, I believe it was Ms. Aldana who was asking about this particular project. And I think the question really is not to oppose a pedestrian bike bridge here at all, but does the design that's going to happen for this particular project as a pedestrian bike bridge allow for, in the future, should we want to create a vehicular access in the future or not? And I think that was the question. And if you can't answer that today, well, we're looking at the design. But I think that was the question of if in the future you wanted to make it back into a vehicular bridge, can you do so in the future, or would you have to redo what's being done here?
Madam Mayor, I'm not prepared to give the full response to that, but I believe the question is, would this design and construction of the and pedestrian bridge preclude another bridge? As an engineer, I know that we can find many creative ways to do many things given the right amount of time and money. And so I would venture to guess that if that's important to the city, that may be some good information for us to know when we go into the design of this structure, so that if there is an ultimate plan for that, we'd certainly want to have that information. But our marching orders were pretty clear from the neighborhood that they desire to have the pedestrian and bike bridge, and the underpass that was recently created in Cacique has given some additional opportunity for vehicular access to the neighborhood. So we're hearing that has been one of the positive factors with regards to getting vehicular access into the neighborhood.
Right, and I would agree with 100% that you're saying, and also say as part of moving forward with this project that the community has asked for, that we take care to not limit our choices in the future if and when it may be that we want to add a vehicular component to a bridge next to it or something in the future. So I don't know if that's. I think that can be done with and improve this today at the same time. But that was the question. Really, was not to say we need a vehicular bridge today. It was, are we tying our hands in the future and have to undo something that we're putting together today because it's only a bike ped bridge. So as I looked at you're designing it. That's just feedback that we got from one person and representing a smaller group. So just to keep that in mind, I think would be important in the design phase. Ms. Murillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to lend my support to the design going forward, and definitely what you're proposing will be an improvement in an area that needs it. But if you could keep in mind that in the future, I think after some public discussion, I hear different ideas that some people are worried that if it is open to vehicular traffic because now it goes right to the freeway, that there'll be a lot of speeding through there. And then some people like the footbridge because it keeps things quiet. Other people don't like the footbridges because it attracts teenagers without anything else to do but hang around. And then I heard that the people on Carpinteria Street feel that they're impacted because everybody has to go the other way because it doesn't go through. So I think there would be some public discussion later, but I guess what I'm in a roundabout way saying is if you could design it so that if vehicular circulation was wanted in the future, that it would be easier to add. And would we need to make a motion about that?
No, I think the way I read it's for the design of it. I think that's just feedback to give to staff as they move forward with the design. I don't think we need to change the item. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Did you get some feedback that people would not like to have a vehicular bridge there because essentially we've got sort of a cul-de-sac on each side of this now?
Councilmember Hotchkiss, there was public feedback with regards to if you build it, they will come. Essentially. So it's pretty well understood that if there was a way for vehicles to get through there, that perhaps more people would detour and utilize it. So certainly when people have quieter streets, they like to keep them quiet.
Right.
And but what we're looking at is from a neighborhood perspective, not just a street perspective, but a neighborhood perspective. And we believe that we've heard from the neighborhood, and this is what the neighborhood would like. So that's been the approach that we've used on this project.
And did they comment at all on whether it should remain just pedestrian and bike?
Yes. Yes.
That was the preference?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is an item on the consent calendar. Does anyone have any other questions or need to take something off the consent calendar? Or is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar?
So moved.
Move the balance. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. All right. Item number 14.
Request for designation of 6100 Hollister Avenue, direct relief, as a community benefit project.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council members. This is a hearing regarding the direct relief project and community benefit designation and allocation. The purpose of the hearing is to designate the direct relief project as a community benefit project and to allocate 80,000 square feet from the community benefit category and to reserve an additional 30,000 square feet for future development from the community benefit category. The proposed project includes the purchase of approximately 6 to 8.5 or so acres of airport-owned property at 6100 Hollister Avenue. And this is per a purchase and sale agreement approved by the Council back in September that you may recall. The project includes a proposal to construct a new 100,000 square foot warehouse and a 25,000 square foot office. It also includes a reservation of 30,000 square feet of community benefit allocation for a future warehouse area. Here is the conceptual site plan for the project that has been submitted by the applicant. I'll point out a few features. Currently, this parcel is owned by the airport. Direct Relief will purchase a portion of it. As shown here, it's approximately 8.5 acres. They are looking at it more carefully, and it may be reduced in size. It includes a warehouse right here of approximately 100,000 square feet, a two-story office area of 25,000 square feet, a truck delivery area here, parking, retention basin areas, outdoor dining area for the employees and volunteers. It also includes a 30,000 square foot future expansion area, and this is the square footage that I referred to as being applied for as a reservation of the allocation. The rest of the parcel below here would be retained by the airport, and another project would be proposed here. The project also includes a new public road here, dividing the two parcels when it's after the subdivision. Back in 2013, the Council adopted the Non-Residential Growth Management Program to limit total new non-residential growth to 1.35 million square feet over 20 years. Of that, 600,000 square feet is reserved for the community benefit projects. Community benefit projects are three different categories. The first one, community priority projects. They're economic development projects. And the third is development plan, new automobile sales projects. For this project, it's a community priority project category. A community priority project has broad public benefit, is not principally operated for private profit, and is necessary to meet a present or projected need directly related to public health, safety, or general welfare. In this case, we're talking about Direct Relief, which is a nonprofit organization that provides medical assistance to people around the world who have been affected by poverty, natural disasters, and civil unrest. Therefore, staff believes that this qualifies as a community priority project. In regard to the square footage allocation, the total amount of square footage required for the overall project is 155,000 square feet. They've secured 45,000 square feet already, and they need an additional 110,000 square feet. This is divided up into the 80,000 square foot for the currently proposed project, and then the 30,000 extra reserved for future expansion area of the warehouse. The initial amount, as I said before, is 600,000 square feet in the community benefit category. Thus far, Council has allocated just over 18,000 square feet. That leaves just over 581,000 square feet left. If the allocation is made for this project, it would be approximately 19% of the remaining square footage in this category. Staff does recommend that Council designate the Direct Relief project as a community benefit project, allocate the 80,000 square feet from the community benefit category, and reserve an additional 30,000 square feet for future development from the community benefit category. The next step would be to, if you approve this, to prepare a council resolution to grant reservation of the 30,000 square feet. And the resolution would be prepared and then adopted at a future council hearing. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd like to let you know that we have not received any public comments or letters, at least through community development, regarding this. And also, Hazel Johns from the airport is here to answer questions if you have any.
Great. And I also see some representatives from Direct Relief here as well. Thank you for being here. I don't see any speaker slips for this item. So it's to the council for any questions or comments at this point. And Ms. Elledge, do you want to say something? Come on up.
Thank you. Suzanne Elledge, representing Direct Relief. We don't have a presentation for you today, but we did just want to make a few brief remarks if we could. We appreciate staff's presentation, and in support of their recommendation, just wanted to make a few brief remarks. You're well acquainted with Direct Relief and what they do, but we did want to just recap what they do as an organization, and then I just had a couple of brief remarks. I'd like to invite the president and CEO of Direct Relief to come up and do that for you, and I'll be back in just a moment.
Okay, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We concur with the community benefit designation. Thank you for reaching that. Just briefly, I think many of you are familiar, but among other things, I think the description said that we provide assistance worldwide. And one of the things that's often overlooked is In the last 10 years, we've become the largest charitable provider of medications for low-income uninsured people in this country. One of the reasons that we're actually seeking the new space is because to meet the compliance required for the safe storage and distribution of prescription medications, the way things work in our federal system, there's very few federal standards for many things, but states have the right to regulate different trades. With respect to the drug supply in this country, there was an emerging national standard that finally this year has been enacted into federal law. So basically, it transcends state law, much of which was different. We benefited from California having one of the most rigorous. But there, for the entire country of 315 million people, there are 533 sites in this country that have been approved as meeting the verified accredited wholesale distributor, kind of the top level for safety, compliance, security. There is one of the 533 licensed entities in this country that is for people who can't pay, and that's Direct Relief's. So we think it's very important for us to be able to maintain this unique among nonprofit credentials so that we could continue to serve people, whether it's through the neighborhood clinics, the folks who fall through the cracks, or anywhere else throughout the state or the country, and indeed the world, so that they can benefit from what we know we expect is consumers who pay for our services, and we strongly believe there should be no lesser standard for those who can't afford to pay. So I think our commitment, the reason we're seeking this, is so that we can, as we've always done, try to make sure that the services that Direct Relief provides, that for local residents, for anyone, would be something that each of you, I and my children, I'd be confident that they could take a medication that has come through us. We're happy to continue to provide the backup supportive services at no charge whatsoever to the county, the city, the state, the federal government, and we think we live here, and it's something that we should do in exchange for the designation as a tax-exempt nonprofit. So I think our history has been here. That's why we would like to stay here. We think it would be very complicated to move, and we'd lose much of our staff. Although everyone says we should be in Sparks, Nevada for logistics purposes, we think it's worked well here, and we continue to remain committed to providing a benefit to this community that certainly allowed Direct Relief to flourish for 67 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your work as well. Ms. Elledge?
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly address the expansion area that's part of the request, the 30,000 square feet future expansion. We are showing that area on the site plan, and ideally the expansion area would be built as part of the initial phase of the project. But if fundraising is constrained and that isn't possible, Direct Relief can do without it as part of the initial phase. We are going to show it on the site plan, study it as part of our technical studies. And between now and when we file our DART application, which we anticipate doing in the next couple of months, we will be deciding whether it's necessary to go beyond the 5-year period within which that floor area is reserved and perhaps request a development agreement. So we don't know yet whether we'll be coming to you with that request as well. But I just wanted to put into context that ideally it would be built all at one time, but it just really depends on the fundraising. So we'll study it and we'll request entitlement. We'll see how soon we can build it. You might wonder what's going to occur on site in that location where we're proposing the expansion, and we anticipate putting water conserving landscape and hardscape in that area so that it'll be easy to build in the future once Direct Relief is ready. And the site plan that Ms. Kennedy showed you is the plan that we submitted with the pre-application review. We're currently studying the site to minimize the amount of acreage that we do have to buy from the city. That's best for Direct Relief, and it's best for you all, as I understand it, because it provides more leftover land for the city to do something with. And so we are studying stormwater retention, and the site plan is getting tweaked a bit. But the major components, and as you saw it on the plan today, are pretty much the way it will be. And we're here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions or comments from the council at this point? Mr. Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I think most people in town have at least heard of Direct Relief International. I think many people know a lot about their work. And though the organization started shortly after World War II, exclusively focused overseas, they now do a great deal of their work here in the United States and even locally. So this community benefit, this priority designation that we're talking about granting to Direct Relief so that they can purchase this property and so that that property will be designated for this use, that's an unusual step. That's not something the city would typically do, but Direct Relief is an exceptional organization, and this is not just for people who are wondering about that community benefit designation, this is not just a benefit for people overseas in horrible situations, though it is that. I also personally view the presence of Direct Relief International in our community, in our county, as a vital sort of backup to our own emergency services provision. It's a real tangible advantage to the people of Santa Barbara to have a facility like this with so much capability in this relatively small community. So it's an absolute no-brainer for me that this deserves the community benefit designation, and that's how I'll be voting.
Ms. Murillo?
Who's ready to make a motion, Madam Mayor, that the council find for the project and the community benefit project category? And just to add that I was a reporter when you helped Haiti during the terrible earthquake, and I know you have a whole list of places and disasters that you've helped, but that one really stands out for me. It's a country that was so hit by poverty and politics before the earthquake. And so when I thought of you today, I thought, I remember what they did for Haiti. So that's my motion, Madam Mayor.
Minus the Haiti part, but...
Not with the Haiti stuff. Just move the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Okay. And I'll just also commend Direct Relief on all the work that you do, both locally and globally. I think, and also just about, it's a significant amount of square footage that we're designating here. But to put in context, in the last round of non-residential space that we had during the last general plan, we used up half of it over 30 years. So I think using you being able to use 19% of what's remaining, and that means we have a whole lot more. I think we'll be doing just fine in terms of our growth management, so I'm not worried about that. And I agree with what's been said about the value of having you right in our own backyard, literally. So thank you for that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you very much. Okay. We have council member committee assignment reports. Ms. Murillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was at the Youth Council meeting yesterday, which was a co-event with What is Love. It's a program that prevents dating violence, and that was in our own Faulkner Gallery. So it was just in a nice community place and a lot of teenagers. I attended the library board meeting just before I came here to City Council, and they were having a discussion about budget. So I'll let people know that we're entering budget season. We know that up here, but just to let people know out in TV land. And the library was talking about their collections, their updating their mission statement. Councilmember White and I were at the new zoning ordinance meeting. Did you want to talk about that when it gets to your turn? Okay. And I just wanted to say that it seems like we really do need to update our zoning ordinance, and we were given a report by the consultant, and I'll let Councilmember White talk more about that. Wells Fargo has opened on Milpas Street. And also, in terms of what happened at the El Bajío restaurant, I did go to the Eden on Tuesday. I had a meeting, a dinner meeting at that time, but I went later to show my support for Santos Guzman, and I strongly disapprove of the protests that took place. I have been working with an association of business owners who have been talking to each other about the East Side Business Improvement District proposal. It's been educational, it's been respectful, and the protest was just so way off the mark in terms of civil dialogue. And so thank you for asking me to make a statement about that. So I was at El Bajío, not when you all were there. I had a meeting, but I came a little bit later. And I did not organize the protest, as was stated, implied today in the Sentinel. That's an opinion column, but I think it should be factual, even if it's an opinion essay. So thank you.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, as well as Mr. Rouse and the mayor, attended the council infrastructure meeting last Thursday, where we reviewed two polling options, and one in particular looked preferable. And I might, in that same breath, remind folks that tomorrow at 11 is our meeting with business and basically thought leaders of the city to take this infrastructure conversation a step further, as well as a meeting. That's at the Gephardt Room at 11 tomorrow, as well as at 5 p.m. at Faulkner. There'll be another public version of that same discussion about our infrastructure. I do urge our citizens and interested parties to show up at that meeting and learn more and participate in the conversation about tending to our infrastructure. And I attended the Courthouse Legacy Foundation gathering showing the ongoing progress with our mural room. And great strides are being made there. Half the board of directors showed up in hard hats and were having fun pretending they were being hardcore workers. But anyway, it's wonderful to see that project moving forward. And I know there's one more thing, Madam Mayor, if I may here. That's all I can remember for now. Thanks. Oh, and then the new zoning ordinance meeting met. The subcommittee met yesterday, and that effort is now teed up for the meat of the matter. I think what we've seen to date is the framework for re-examining this, what has been attributed to being the 57 Chevy of the city of Santa Barbara, and how are we going to bring that forward to being a 21st century document. I was very impressed with the consultant that is leading the effort, and I think we're going to get a good product out of that.
Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Airport Commission, the most interesting thing, well, there were a lot of interesting things, but Tony Ruggieri has assembled over the last 2 years a 2-hour film about the history of the airport. It will be available on a touchscreen for the public, not in a 2-hour format, but in a 5-minute format soon. But he showed some of it, and it's really a fascinating effort, all the way from the racing that used to be done. I think James Dean was out there at one point, and cars, and of course early flight films. But there's really a remarkable history of aviation in Santa Barbara, and the movie goes all the way back to the Lockheed brothers, who first flew a float plane right in front of the Ambassador Hotel, I think, in 1911. That was a big deal back then. So anyway, we've spawned a lot of movements, but clearly aviation, we've had a great influence on aviation early on.
Mr. Rouse?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also attended the El Bajío eat-in that Ms. Murillo talked about, and what was impressive to me wasn't the fact that we all showed up, was the support from both the chamber and the downtown organization and the surrounding community members who showed an outpouring of not only affection and support for Mr. Guzman, but also a general disapproval of the way the other protest was handled. So that was a very good community response, and made you feel pretty good about being here, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All 7 of us at one point or another were there eating tacos or something like that, so that was great. Yeah. No, it's amazing food. I want to commend staff in our Public Works and City Attorney's Office. I went up to Pismo Beach to the Coastal Commission hearing, and we got a unanimous vote from the Coastal Commission for our desalination plant. So I believe all the regulatory permitting milestones. That's what I want to say. Not loopholes, milestones. The opposite. We've been through there, and obviously we'll have another drought update and updates coming back here about moving forward. Should it not rain, and I don't think it's going to rain, but really the care taken up to that moment and through the meeting was commendable. Ken Opplinger from the Chamber actually drove up to Pismo Beach to speak during public comment, so I appreciate that, as well as Barry Keller from our Water Commission was there. So I think very well done, all work around. I know a lot of work was put into that. Last weekend, I was at the United Way for their annual VITA, which is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. Last year, this is the Santa Barbara Dons and other volunteers help mostly low-income families to do their tax returns. And last year, in the area, $5 million came back into the community through this program, various different types of refunds. And so that's money that people have earned. It's not a gift. They actually earned it. It was just they need to get it back through their tax process, and that money back in their pocket that they could either save or reinvest in the community. So huge kudos to United Way, and our city housing authority is very much a part of that, and about 6 different banks were around helping people if they want to open up an account. So it's a really great program that happens every year. Sunday, I participated along with Sergeant Riley Harwood and our chaplain at a CAPS Center communication about community policing. Basically, they had a speaker, a professor from New York who came in and talked about policing in general and community connection, and so we were there to present the more local side, and there was about a group of 40 or so individuals. That was a great conversation. It could have gone on for more than the hour and a half that it did, but it was great to be involved in that. So I believe that's all for now. And with that, we do have a closed session, if you could read.
Conference with City Attorney, pending litigation. The pending litigation is Frank Benares, Sebastian Alda Jr., Jacqueline Inda, Crisito Herrera Cruz, and Benjamin Chavez versus City of Santa Barbara.
Great, and we don't expect to report anything else, so we
Mayor,
will adjourn. Yes,
I want to amend that. There may be a report.
There may be a report?
Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned. There may be a report. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to call the City Council meeting back to order, and we do have a report out from the closed session. I'll just turn it to Mr. Kalan.
Thank you, Mayor. In closed session, the council, by unanimous vote, 6-0, with a motion by Councilmember Hotchkiss, seconded by Councilmember Francisco, voted to enter into a settlement agreement in Banales versus City of Santa Barbara. The mayor's signature on the settlement agreement is subject to certain further assurances from the plaintiffs, subject to approval of the city attorney.
Thank you. That is all. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Dreamy for dancing while we're here romancing. It's love's holiday.